3 times a day. The mail order bride said. But on the third night, what the rancher did next changed history. 3 times a day, the mail order bride's hands moved across his scarred skin with a tenderness that made Calhoun Reed Ashford's breath catch, not from pain, but from the impossible gentleness of her touch. Morning, afternoon, and night, Thessaly May Bridger unwrapped the bandages covering burns that had stolen half his face, half his hope, and all his belief that any woman could look at him without flinching. But she never flinched. 3 times a day, her fingers traced the angry red flesh with a care so exquisite it felt like worship. 3 times a day, this tall, strong woman who'd traveled halfway across Wyoming territory to marry a stranger leaned close enough that he could smell lavender in her hair, close enough that he could see something haunting and beautiful in her eyes. 3 times a day, the rancher who'd ordered a wife out of desperation fell a little more in love with the bride who touched him like he was still a man worth saving. But on the third night, oh, the third night, when fever and shame finally broke him, when he tried to send her away with all his money because he couldn't bear to trap her with a monster, the mail-order bride whispered words and revealed secrets that shattered his broken heart wide open. And what the rancher did next, the way he reached for her, the way he finally let himself be loved, that single moment of surrender didn't just heal 2 wounded souls. It changed the meaning of love itself across the entire Wyoming frontier. What could possibly make a proud, suffering rancher break down on that third night? What secrets was the mail-order bride hiding that made her understand his pain so deeply? And what did he do in return that was so powerful, so romantic, so revolutionary, it would echo through history for generations? The stagecoach that brought Thessaly to Prescott Hollow rattled through dust so thick it coated her throat like ash. She stepped down into the October cold wearing a traveling dress that had seen better years and carrying a carpetbag that held everything she owned in this world. The town went quiet when they saw her, a woman tall as most men, shoulders broad from years of work that broke the back and bent the spirit. Hands that looked like they knew violence. She stood there in that silence and felt their judgment crawl across her skin like insects. The advertisement had been clear. Rancher seeks sturdy wife, must not fear hard work or isolation, no romance required. Those last 3 words were the only honest thing a man had ever written to her. A thin, nervous man in a suit too big for his frame approached with his hat in his hands. Mr. Pettigrew, the lawyer. He wouldn't look at her face. "Ma'am," he said, "I must inform you of developments. Mr. Ashford's situation has changed considerably since that advertisement was placed." Thessaly's grip tightened on her bag. "Is he dead?" she asked. The flatness in her voice surprised even her. "No, ma'am," Pettigrew said quickly. "But 3 weeks passed, there was a fire. The barn caught and Mr. Ashford went in after his horses. He saved every one of them. But the man you'll meet today," he swallowed hard. "He ain't the man whose photograph was in that letter." Thessaly looked at the mountains rising beyond the town like broken teeth against the sky. Back east there was nothing for her. Her sister's pitying looks. Her dead husband's brother who'd made his intentions clear at the funeral. A town that whispered murderous when she walked past, even though they couldn't prove a thing. Forward, there was an injured stranger who needed help. "The arrangement stands," she said, "unless Mr. Ashford wishes to dissolve it." Pettigrew looked relieved and worried all at once. "He's a proud man, ma'am. What happened to him? It's broken something inside." But she was already walking toward the wagon. The ranch sat against the mountains like something holding its breath. The house was well built, but empty feeling. Cold. Inside, it smelled of carbolic acid and burned flesh underneath the coffee and wood smoke. Thessaly set down her bag, and there he was. Calhoun Reed Ashford. Sitting in a chair by the window with half his face wrapped in bandages and his left arm splinted against his chest. What she could see of him was sharp-featured and dark-haired, storm-colored eyes that held nothing but resignation. "You should have stayed on that stagecoach," he said. His voice was rough as gravel dragged across stone. "Pettigrew was supposed to pay your return fare." "I don't want return fare," Thessaly said. "I want what the advertisement promised, a home, work, no romance required." Something flickered across the visible part of his face. Surprise, maybe. Or the ghost of bitter humor. "I need a nurse, not a wife," he said. 3 times a day the bandages need changing. "The salve needs applying. It's ugly work, ma'am. The kind that turns the stomach." "I've done ugly work before," she said. He studied her then. Really studied her. Like he was trying to see past the surface to whatever lived underneath. "I can't pay you proper wages till spring," he said. "The fire took most everything." "Room and board is wages enough," Thessaly said. "And my name on a marriage license is payment for safety. I don't need more than that." The silence stretched between them. 2 people who'd learned that hope was dangerous, that wanting led to hurting. But something passed between them in that moment. Some recognition, the way one wounded animal knows another by scent. 3 times a day, Calhoun said quietly. "Morning, afternoon, before bed. Takes about an hour each time. You'll have to touch the burns. Touch what's underneath." "It ain't healing pretty, ma'am." Thessaly removed her traveling cloak. "Then I'd best start learning how you like it done." She didn't know it yet, but those words would change everything. 3 times a day. It sounded like a sentence, but it would become a salvation. The first time Thessaly unwrapped Calhoun's bandages, her hands didn't shake. She'd seen worse, though she'd never speak of where or how. He sat rigid in the chair by the window, with his jaw clenched so tight, she could see the muscle jumping beneath the skin on his good side. "You can flinch," he said without looking at her. "I won't fault you for it." "I don't flinch," she said. And she didn't. The burns covered his left shoulder and crept up his neck like something alive and angry. They claimed half his face from jaw to temple. The flesh was red and weeping in places, blistered and raw. The kind of wound that whispered infection and fever and death if not tended proper. She cleaned it first with water boiled and cooled. Then came the salve the doctor had left. It smelled of silver nitrate and laudanum and something else she couldn't name. Her fingers moved across his ruined skin with a gentleness that surprised them both. Not clinical, not distant, but careful, reverent almost, like she was touching something precious that had been broken and needed putting back together. Calhoun trembled under her touch, not from pain, from something deeper, shame maybe, or the shock of being touched at all without disgust. His breathing went shallow. She could feel his heart hammering through his shoulder. "Easy," she murmured. Almost done. Her voice was soft, lower than he expected. It had a quality that made him think of deep water, of things that ran quiet but strong. When she wrapped the fresh bandages, her fingers brushed the unmarked skin of his neck, and he flinched like she'd burned him again. She pulled back. "Did I hurt you?" "No," he said hoarsely. "You didn't hurt me." That first day they barely spoke beyond what was necessary. She learned the rhythm of the house, the cook stove that ran hot on the left side, the well that needed 10 pumps before the water ran clear, the way the wind came down from the mountains like something wounded and searching. At the afternoon changing, Calhoun's fever had risen. His skin felt hot beneath her fingers. At evening, his whole body was rigid with the effort of not crying out. The infection was trying to take hold. She worked quickly, thoroughly, and when she was done, she made him drink willow bark tea that he said tasted like dirt and suffering. "You should eat," she said after the 3rd wrapping of the day. "Lost my appetite for being seen," he muttered. "Then I'll eat in the kitchen and you'll eat here." Thessaly said. But you'll eat Mr. Ashford because I didn't cross half the country to watch a man starve himself from pride. Something almost like a smile touched the corner of his mouth. The unmarked corner. Yes, ma'am, he said. And for the first time since the fire, he ate a full plate. That night, Thessaly lay in the small room off the kitchen that had once been for hired help. The mattress was thin and the blankets smelled of cedar. She stared at the ceiling and thought about the way Calhoun had looked at her, like he was trying to solve a puzzle, like he couldn't figure out why she hadn't run. Back east, they'd called her husband a good man, respected, God-fearing. Nobody saw what happened behind closed doors. Nobody wanted to see. The night he died, she'd knelt beside his body and felt nothing but relief so profound, it terrified her. The doctor said his heart gave out. Some people whispered she'd helped it along. She hadn't, but she'd thought about it. Lord help her, she'd thought about it plenty. The second day, Calhoun asked questions. Where she'd come from. Boston. If she had people. A sister, but we don't speak no more. Why she'd answered an advertisement from a stranger. She'd prepared lies for these questions. Comfortable, soft lies about seeking adventure or new beginnings. But standing there with her hands gentle on his damaged flesh, the lies wouldn't come. I was married before, she said quietly. My husband had a powerful temper. One night it went too far, and the Lord saw it fit to stop his heart before he could finish what he started. Some folks back home thought I'd helped the Lord along with rat poison in his supper. Couldn't prove it, but couldn't forget it neither. Calhoun's eyes found hers. Did you? Poison him? No, she said, but I'd thought about it plenty. Maybe that's sin enough. Thinking ain't doing, he said. You'd be the first man to make that distinction, she replied. The air between them felt different after that. Lighter somehow, like they'd both set down something heavy. At the afternoon changing, he told her about the fire, how he'd woken to the horses screaming, how the barn had been fully ablaze by the time he got outside, how he'd run in anyway, because those horses were all he had left after his parents died, and his brother moved to California, and the woman he'd been courting took one look at his circumstances and married a banker instead. I got 6 horses out, he said. His voice went rough with memory. The 7th was trapped. Beam had fallen across the stall. I was trying to lift it when the roof came down. He paused. The horse made it. I made it. But this is what made it cost. Thessaly's hands stilled on his shoulder. You're a brave man, Mr. Ashford. I'm a fool, he said bitterly. A fool who can't even look in a mirror anymore without wanting to put a bullet through what's looking back. Her fingers tightened slightly on his unmarred shoulder. Don't say that. Don't even think it. The fierceness in her voice surprised them both. That afternoon, the infection flared worse. The burns on his shoulder had gone from angry red to a deep purple that spoke of poison in the blood. She'd need to lance the worst of it, drain the corruption, cause him more pain than he'd already endured. This will hurt, she said softly. Everything hurts, he replied. She worked by lamplight with hands that didn't shake even though her heart was hammering. He bit down on a leather strap and endured. His body convulsed, sweat poured down his face, but he didn't cry out. When it was done, when she'd drained the infection and packed the wound with fresh salve, tears were streaming down both sides of his face, silent, anguished. I'm sorry, Thessaly whispered, and she realized she was crying too. You got nothing to be sorry for, Calhoun said through gritted teeth. You're saving my life. 3 times a day, she said. Her voice broke. Morning, afternoon, and night. We'll get you through this, Mr. Ashford. I promise you. He looked at her then. Really looked at her. This tall, strong woman with tears on her face and blood on her hands. This stranger who'd walked into his broken life and refused to walk back out. Why? He asked. Why are you doing this? Because somebody has to, she said simply. And because maybe we're both running from things that can't be outrun. Maybe the only way through is together. That night, she lay in her small room and listened to him pacing in the darkness. Heard the sound of glass breaking, of a man at the end of his rope, and she knew. She knew with a certainty that cut through her like prophecy. Tomorrow night, the third night, everything would change. Thessaly woke to the sound of breaking glass and a roar of anguish that tore through the darkness like something dying. She was out of bed before she was fully awake, running through the cold house in her nightdress, with her heart wild in her chest. The main room was chaos, lamplight flickering, furniture overturned, and there in the center of it all stood Calhoun Reed Ashford, shirtless and bandages half torn away, with a whiskey bottle shattered at his feet and blood seeping through the dressings on his shoulder. His eyes were fever bright and desperate. Lost. "What are you doing?" she gasped. She reached for him, but he lurched backward like her touch would burn him worse than any fire. "Can't," he choked out. "Can't let you keep doing this. Keep touching this ruined thing. Keep pretending it ain't a horror." His voice broke on the last word. Shattered like the glass at his feet. "You need to lie down," Thessaly said. Her voice was steady even though fear clawed at her throat. "Let me tend the wounds. Let me help you." "No," he said. The word came out like a sob. "I got money. In the desk. Take it. Take all of it. Go back east. Find a whole man. Find someone who can give you a life. Not this. Not a monster." Thessaly stood very still. She'd heard these words before. Different mouth, same poison. "You're ruined. You're broken. You're nothing." Her husband had said it while his fists fell like judgment. The town had said it with their whispers and their turned backs. And now here was this wounded man saying it to himself, believing it so deeply it was killing him from the inside out. "You think you're the only one carrying scars?" she said quietly. Her voice cut through his panic like a blade. "You don't understand," Calhoun said. His whole body was shaking. "You can't understand what it's like to be looked at with disgust, to be something that makes people turn away." "Don't I?" she said. The two words hung in the air between them, heavy, loaded. He stared at her, confusion cutting through the fever haze. "What?" "You think you're the only one who knows what it means to be broken," Thessaly said. Her hands went to the buttons of her nightdress. Calhoun's eyes went wide. "Mrs. Bridger, you don't have to." "Hush," she said, and her voice was gentle, fierce, final. She turned her back to him, slipped the fabric off her shoulders, let it fall to her waist, and showed him what no living soul had seen since the night her husband died. The scars crisscrossed her back like a road map of cruelty. Belt marks that had cut deep and healed poorly. Burn marks from a fire poker applied in rage, the puckered, twisted flesh where a broken bottle had traced her spine. Years of violence written on her skin in a language that needed no translation. The silence that followed was absolute, sacred and terrible all at once. 3 times a day, Thessaly said softly, still facing away from him, still letting him see. "You let me touch your wounds. Now I'm asking you to see mine." She pulled the nightdress back up over her shoulders, turned to face him. His face had gone soft with horror and understanding and something else. Something that looked like recognition, like he was seeing her for the first time. Really seeing her. "Thessaly," he whispered. It was the first time he'd used her Christian name. The sound of it in his mouth made her heart stutter. "We're both the broken things nobody wanted, Mr. Ashford," she said. Her voice was steady, but her hands were shaking now. "But I see you, and you're still beautiful to me." "Beautiful," he repeated. The word sounded foreign in his mouth, like he'd forgotten what it meant. "How can you say that? How can you look at this and see anything but?" He gestured at his face, at the ruin of his shoulder. She crossed the space between them, careful of the broken glass. stood close enough that she could feel the heat radiating off his fevered skin. "Because beauty ain't about what's unmarked," she said. "It's about what survives." Her hand lifted, slowly, giving him time to pull away. But he didn't. She touched the unmarked side of his face, let her fingers trace the line of his jaw, then she moved her hand to the bandaged side, laid her palm against the rough cotton that covered his burns. He closed his eyes. A shudder ran through him. "This," she whispered, "this is beautiful to me. Not because it's pretty, but because you survived it. Because you're still here, still breathing, still fighting. That's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." A sound broke from his throat, half sob, half laugh, wholly broken. "I can't ask you to stay," he said. But his hand came up and covered hers where it rested against his bandaged cheek. "Can't ask you to tie yourself to this." "You ain't asking," Thessaly said. "I'm choosing." Her other hand found his good hand, laced their fingers together. "Now come on, let me tend these wounds proper, and then you're going to let me lie beside you tonight. Not for romance, not for duty, but because you're burning up with fever and you need someone to keep watch." She paused. "And because I'm tired of sleeping alone in the dark, afraid." Something in him broke then, not like glass, like ice in spring, like something frozen finally allowed to thaw. "I don't deserve you," he whispered. "Maybe we don't deserve each other," she said. "Or maybe we're exactly what the other needs. Either way, we're going to find out." She guided him toward the bedroom. He leaned on her, and she bore his weight easily. This tall, strong woman who'd crossed half a continent running from ghosts. This wounded man who'd given up on being seen as human. Together they moved through the darkness toward something neither of them had dared hope for. In the bedroom, she sat him on the edge of the bed and worked by candlelight. Removed the torn bandages. Cleaned the wounds that had reopened in his desperation. Applied fresh salve with hands that trembled slightly now that the crisis had passed. He watched her face the whole time, studied the concentration in her eyes, the set of her mouth, the way she bit her lower lip when she was focused. "You're good at this," he said softly. "I've had practice tending wounds," she said, "though usually I was the one wearing them." His hand caught her wrist. Gentle. "Are you safe now?" he asked. "Here, with me. Are you safe?" "Safer than I've ever been," she said, and meant it. When the bandaging was done, she helped him lie back, covered him with blankets. Then she moved to the other side of the bed, lay down on top of the covers, not touching him but close, close enough that he could feel her warmth, close enough that neither of them was alone anymore. "3 times a day," Calhoun murmured. His eyes were already closing, fever and exhaustion dragging him under. "3 times a day," Thessaly promised, "for as long as you need me." But in her heart, she knew the truth. It had already become something more. Somewhere between the first touch and the third night. Somewhere between his shame and her scars. Somewhere in the careful, tender space where 2 broken people had found each other in the darkness and decided not to let go. His breathing evened out, deepened. She lay beside him and felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. And in that moment, on that third night in a ranch house in Wyoming territory with a scarred man sleeping beside her and her own scars hidden beneath her nightdress, Thessaly May Bridger finally understood. Love wasn't about perfection. It was about seeing the wounds and choosing to stay anyway. Outside, the wind howled down from the mountains. Inside, 2 hearts beat in the darkness. And history held its breath, waiting to see what would happen when the sun rose on the 4th day. When morning came, Calhoun's fever had broken. He woke to find Thessaly still beside him, her hand resting near his shoulder. She'd kept watch all night. The realization hit him like a fist to the chest. This woman had seen his worst moment, his deepest shame, and she'd stayed. More than stayed. She'd shown him her own scars, proved they were the same. Two broken things that somehow fit together. By November, he could work the ranch again, though his left arm would never be quite right. The scars had healed into thick ridges that pulled at his face when he smiled, and he was smiling more, much to his own surprise. Thessaly moved through the ranch like she was born to it, gentle with the horses, strong with the work, beautiful in ways that had nothing to do with what the mirror showed. They were married proper in December. That night he touched her face with wonder. "I used to think I knew what beautiful was," he said. "Then I thought I'd never see it again. But you taught me different. Beautiful ain't what's unmarked. It's what survives." Their kiss was gentle and hungry all at once. In January, a woman appeared at their door, beaten, desperate, two small children clinging to her skirts. Her husband was respected in town. Nobody would believe her. Thessaly looked at Calhoun. Calhoun looked at their spare room. "3 times a day I tend what needs tending," Thessaly said. "This needs tending." The woman stayed. Then another came. And another. By spring, the Ashford Ranch had become something Wyoming had never seen. A sanctuary. The town didn't like it. But Calhoun stood in the square one April morning and said words that would echo for generations. "Any woman who needs sanctuary will find it at my ranch, and any man with a problem can take it up with me personal. Nobody did." The Ashford Sanctuary Ranch operated for 43 years. Over 2,000 women passed through its doors. But in Prescott Hollow, the old-timers told a simpler story. They said it started on a third night when a mail-order bride climbed into bed beside a ruined man and proved that love wasn't about perfection. It was about seeing the scars and choosing to stay. 3 times a day, she'd tended his wounds, and in doing so, she'd healed something bigger than both of them. She'd changed history by changing one heart, and he'd changed hers right back. If this story touched your heart, turn on the notification bell so you never miss another story like this. Because sometimes the most powerful love stories are the ones history almost forgot. And tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Because sometimes the most powerful love stories are the ones history almost forgot.